You and I met the first time at a noir at the bar in Durham, and you've been to a
Hmm.
bunch of them. I've been to one as an actual performer and a couple others just watching and things. Basically, it's a reading, and it's done at a bar, and it's crime fiction, and then you bring a short story in, a short piece, and share it, and try to get the everybody in there's attention for as long as you can, and then let them go. And you know, the night that we did it, I remember I went in, and each person kind of had to recapture the crowd a little bit. Like they'd kind of gone off in their conversation, so you had to talk a
Hmm.
little, get a few sentences in, say enough to where they you caught their attention again, and everybody quiet back down. Now I remember when you read, the bar went silent, and it stayed silent, and I was impressed by the piece you did. And you and I have talked about this before, but like
Yeah.
I was incredibly impressed by it. Like it was one of the best short stories I'd heard in a long time, and I talked about it on videos and other places
Hmm.
too.
And so I've done a bunch of short stories, and it's ironic because that story I read was sort of the inspiration for Black Top Wasteland. But it's funny, I wanted to mention that because you read a fantastic story. It was a hilarious story about a guy at a call center who's he's at a suicide prevention call center and he's trying to get people to go through with their plans because he needs a transplant. But I love that story; it's very funny, and I have a very dark sense of humor, so that's why I laugh. But it's funny because two things about that story. One, that's my first noir at the bar. Um, but I grew up in the church and I grew up doing stuff in the church. So I wasn't afraid to speak in front of people.
Yeah,
Public
yeah,
speaking is a part of being, if anybody's been Southern Baptist, Pentecostal, what have you, you're going to speak in church. And you're going to do benediction, or not benediction, you're going to do responsive reading, or you're going to read the morning, Old Testament, New Testament, what have you. But anyway, so I'd never done that before, but I'd had some public speaking experience. But the person who put that together didn't tell me the time limit. So that's a long story. That story was
yeah.
like
It
12
is. It was.
minutes. And I felt really bad. And what's funny? I learned from that. The next time I did one, I wrote a piece specifically. And I've always done it since. I always, if I'm invited to do a noir at the bar, I write a piece specifically for the noir at the bar.
Yeah, yeah,
But having said all that, that was a really cool experience because when I finished, nobody said anything. And I was like, man, that's shit. I remember I passed you and you were like, that's a really good story, man. I said, thank you. And I was kept on walking and this lady stopped me and she grabbed my arm like really tight and she was crying. And she was like, that was incredible. And then people started clapping and it was whatever. But I like doing the water bars. I like the energy. I miss them, but I enjoy it. It's such a great give and take. And it made me a better writer because again after that event and after I dragged on because I think somebody almost didn't get a chance to read. I felt really bad, and so it pushed me to tighten my writing style,
mm.
especially for short stories. And eventually, one of my short stories that I had written originally for Noir the Bar got published, and it won an award. It won the Anthony for best short story
Yeah, yeah.
in 2019. And I credit Noir the Bar for making me a much better. Even in my longer stuff in my books, uh, I just I used to have. I think Stephen King calls it verbal elephantitis, and I used to be that way. I used to just have long, florid sentences and long pastoral exchanges, and I really learned to tighten things up.
Yeah, that it was interesting. I've kind of changed my philosophy on readings and stuff like that, like writing specifically. Like I write differently for a spoken to a crowd that I do to the written word because they're different things that work one way that don't work the other. And I have a certain
Mm-hmm.
I almost take a like almost an antagonistic approach to the crowd, like where
I like
I'm
that.
looking to I'm looking to almost like they're land that needs to be conquered kind of thing.
Well, yeah,
Now
well, a
it's
lot.
interesting. Like I would never advise anyone to do a 12-minute story, but yours
No,
worked. And I know you're talking about church, but you almost went the opposite of how you weren't. It was almost like you weren't putting into performance. You almost drew into yourself a little bit,
yeah.
and the words were understated. The story was very high octane, and
Hmm.
just it was thick with emotion. Because it's father son dealing with like this.
Hmm.
Things are basically collapsing while they're enjoying this high octane ride. But
Right.
the words just kind of were were real easy and quiet, and the crowd was drawn in, and that you had them the entire 12 minutes. It wasn't like everybody started getting antsy. Now, no one else listening to this should ever try that. Like that.
Please don't.
Yeah, it's a bad idea. But this is that one time in the universe where it worked right.